Welcome. We're so glad to have you here with the Office of Early Childhood's webinar, There's No Place Like Home, supporting families experiencing housing insecurity and its impact on young children. Diana, may you please give us instructions to access interpretation?
Thank you, Lorna. Buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Diana Reyes y voy a dar las instrucciones para acceder a la traducción. En la parte inferior de la pantalla, haga clic en el globo que dice interpretación. Si no ves el globo, hay un círculo con 3 puntos que dice más. Y ahí puede ver el globo y desde ahí haga clic en SP o español. Gracias por acompañarnos. Que tenga un buen día.
Welcome, everyone. It's my pleasure to be able to welcome you here today to our webinar. My name is Elena Trueworthy, the Acting Commissioner for the Connecticut Office of Early Childhood. And thank you so much for being with us today. Today, we're talking about a very important topic, an issue area that really impacts all of what we do, right? Today's webinar is entitled, There's No Place Like Home, Supporting Families Experiencing Housing Insecurities and Its Impact on Young Children. Unfortunately, right, the reality is that many children and families in Connecticut and nationally, right, struggle with unstable housing and being at risk of homelessness and being homeless, right? And we know that the early childhood years, right, the beginning, are critical moments when the brain is doing the most of its development. And so those connections, those experiences are so critical. And for families to know and to have a safe place where they can rest their heads at night, right? And have that stability and have that routine, which is so important for young children, is what we strive for all of our children to have, right? So we're really helping to lay the foundation for our children's growth into adulthood. And the work that we all do in early childhood, right, whether it is with home visiting, right, early intervention, childcare, so many of the other services and supports that we can offer for young children and families, we're really helping to mitigate, right, or lessen the impact of homelessness. And that is so important. And so your role is so important in this work. And at the Office of Early Childhood, I can't say enough about the critical role of partners, right? Partners within the housing sector, such as the State Department of Education, the Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness, the national organizations that we work with, and the State Department of Ed. I mean, I can go on, including all of you who are doing such innovative work, right? And partnerships are key. Our work with the housing sector has really opened our eyes as to what's available when it comes to resources and services, right? And being able to collaborate and share that knowledge base and resources are absolutely key. And some of our innovative efforts, such as Head Start on Housing, right? Such as efforts happening in communities to help house early childhood professionals, being able to expand our Care for Kids subsidy to have families experiencing housing instability and homelessness be eligible, and so much more that we'll get into today in the webinar. So I'm so grateful to all of you and all of our partners, and I'm really grateful to be able to introduce Sarah Fox. It has been such a pleasure to be able to work with Sarah. She is the Chief Executive Officer at the Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness. Previously, she served as their Chief Operating Officer, Director of Policy, and Director of Advocacy and Community Impact. Sarah is a change agent in the field, is a wonderful partner, and brings such expertise and knowledge and passion to the work. And so it's really my pleasure to be able to introduce Sarah.
Thank you so much, Elena, and thanks so much, everyone, for having me. And now I'm going to start my presentation. So thanks so much for having me. My name is Sarah Fox, and as Elena said, I'm the Chief Executive Officer for the Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness. Our vision is to prevent and solve homelessness in Connecticut, and our mission is to drive transformative change in how we respond to homelessness by promoting equitable and effective emergency responses and fostering long-term solutions through collaboration with providers, our state agencies, and communities. I'm so glad to be here and to come together so that we can envision together a future where every child, every parent, and family can feel secure in their own home. To understand why family homelessness is at a crisis point, we must examine the housing landscape. The United States has a record low supply of homes, and Connecticut alone faces a shortage of nearly 100,000 units. Zoning laws have favored costly single-family homes, pushing affordable options out of reach. And this shortage drives rents beyond families' means, forcing many to spend over half of their income just to stay housed. Housing, once which was a basic need, has become a privilege that so many cannot afford. This crisis impacts families, seniors, and even those supporting our most vulnerable. And importantly, this crisis is not colorblind. Discriminatory practices and policies have historically excluded Black, Indigenous, and people of color from wealth building and home ownership, leaving those communities far more likely to experience homelessness and to face severe cost burdens. Addressing homelessness requires confronting these racial inequities head on. The devastating impacts of this crisis are evident every day across Connecticut. Over the past 3 years, calls to 211 for housing and shelter assistance have surged by 57%. In June alone, nearly 1,700 individuals reached out to our coordinated access network hubs for help. And according to our annual point in time count in January, 362 family households were experiencing homelessness, up from 234 in 2021. And this is on one day. As of October 21st of this year, in our by name list, a real-time account of people experiencing homelessness, we have over 4,974 individuals across the state, including 655 families with 461 children experiencing homelessness. And behind each one of these statistics is a child facing the devastating impact of homelessness. In the 2023-2024 school year, there were 5,463 Connecticut students identified as experiencing homelessness, and this includes couch surfing. For these children, the toll is severe, leading to instability, stress, and significant disruption to their academic progress. We owe it to every child in our state to provide a stable home where they can feel safe and supported. And behind the numbers are families like one who recently reached out to us, a mother with 2 young children holding down 2 jobs, yet still unable to afford a safe place to live. This family, like so many, were forced into living in a shelter after losing their housing in the increasingly expensive market. These are the real people who simply want stability and a chance for their children to thrive. And let's not lose sight of the bigger picture. Family homelessness is not just about housing. It affects every dimension of a family's life and well-being. Homelessness can lead to family separation because families have nowhere to go. And the trauma that accompanies this level of instability is immense. Both children and parents experience increased levels of anxiety, depression, and stress. Health outcomes are impacted as well, with limited access to healthcare and often worsening conditions like asthma and diabetes. Studies show that homeless children are more likely to experience chronic health issues, and the strain of homelessness contributes to mental health challenges that can affect family dynamics for years. The consequences of homelessness don't just disappear when families regain stable housing. Homelessness limits educational opportunities for children and impacts economic opportunities for families in the long term, leading to an intergenerational cycle of poverty. The all-in federal strategic plan to prevent and end homelessness provides clear guidance that we are so grateful for from the national level, and we're actively working to bring these strategies to Connecticut. This includes updating zoning laws for more affordable housing options, expanding supportive housing for families with complex needs, and strengthening services for families most at risk. Most importantly, and similar to the work we're doing here, there's a focus on a cross-sector approach, spanning housing, healthcare, education, and employment, ensuring that families have the supports they need to thrive. And to address these complex challenges, we need a whole family approach. We must strengthen coordination between our sectors, from housing to healthcare, and from early childhood to workforce development. When we provide community-based supports that addresses the unique needs of each family, we can create a foundation for sustained stability and success. And for those of you who are helping families every day experiencing homelessness, it's also just critical to mention that for families experiencing housing insecurity and homelessness, they all should call United Way of Connecticut's 211. There, we will connect them with our local coordinated access networks and our hubs. And our hubs are newly formulated in-person locations in every coordinated access network. And I would recommend that every early care provider work to establish strong relationships with your local CANs who can assist you with families in need. And across our state, there are many examples of promising practice and organizations that are making a difference. Let me share a few that offer hope and show us a path forward. First, there is New Reach, which is an organization out of Fairfield County and New Haven. They have a really promising program called the Stable Families Program in Bridgeport, which has prevented more than 98% of its participating families from experiencing eviction since 2009. This program serves hundreds of individuals each year and primarily focuses on single-parent families of color, providing intensive case management and legal assistance. The Stable Family Program shows us that when we invest in proactive services, we can prevent homelessness before it begins. I also wanted to uplift the amazing work of Head Start on housing. I believe it should be brought to scale for every single child in early care across the state. It's such an incredible program. One of the stories I recently heard is of a family, a mother and her two sons, who found hope through the program. With a housing voucher, they were able to move into an affordable apartment, allowing the mom to continue her studies while working in a part-time job. Her family now has a stable home, and that is just so critical. And so I just love the fact that this program provides a foundation for families to sort of jump off of, where they can really live their life to their fullest potential. Again, bringing this to scale is something I think that is critical for the state. Another promising approach is something that we do here at CCEH. It's our Be Homeful program, which provides flexible funding through diversion to families who are at the front door of shelter. Over We have helped more than 1,000 families statewide. No, I'm saying this wrong. Over the past year, more than 2,500 families received assistance through our cans. And we were able to divert across the state 1,000 families with an overall diversion rate of 41%. And the Be Homeful campaign was 33% of those overall diversions. And so that means with flexible funding and problem solving conversations, we're keeping people from coming into homelessness and preventing homelessness before it begins. I like to imagine a Connecticut where every family feels secure, where no child has to wonder if they have a place to sleep tomorrow night. Together, we can make this a reality. The commitment we make today can ensure that every family has a safe, stable place to call home. No family should be unsheltered, especially in the winter months. And with your support, we can make sure that Connecticut leads the way not only in ending homelessness, but preventing it. I invite all of you to join CCEH and our Connecticut Can End Homelessness campaign. We officially relaunched on November 7th, and we will be having an annual meeting, which I will share with all of you. Together, it's the partnerships that we forge and the work that we do strategically to really change the landscape for families and for individuals and the people in Connecticut. I believe that we can have a state where no one falls into homelessness, and it's so critical that we do this work together. So please join us as we move this work forward and help to ensure that Connecticut is a state where every family can thrive. Thank you.
My, oh my, Sarah, the thanks is to you. Thank you so much for giving us rich information that's showing how we as a state have so much work still to do. And we're so thankful for your organization and helping to lead the way. I'm just really struck by you mentioning in terms of one of the goals being every child, every parent, every family can feel safe in their own home. Thank you for reminding us of that importance. Thank you so much for your powerful words. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course, and we know we're not finished with you because we are so honored that you are also going to be a part of our panel discussion. And we so look forward to hearing your continued words of wisdom then. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you.
And now it is my honor to introduce a wonderful teammate, Karen Pascal, who is the Connecticut Head Start Collaboration Office Director. Karen has truly been a champion with respect to supporting this effort, with recognizing the need for all children to have proper, safe housing. And we are so thankful that she's with us today to introduce our video vignette. Passing it to you, Karen.
Thank you so much, Lorna. I am honored to have you and Sarah as colleagues in this work. I'm also honored to introduce you all to Kara, who was featured in our video vignette. Lorna and I had the opportunity to spend time with Kara and hear her story. She is a resilient young woman and truly an inspiration to all. You'll hear how through support and partnership with her realtor, her early Head Start program, Head Start on Housing, and other national, state, and community partners, Kara was able to secure housing for her family, which has allowed her children to flourish. We thank you, Kara, for sharing your housing journey with all of us.
So I lived in Virginia, and I was going through a domestic violence situation with my son's father, which my son is 2. I do have 2 other children, a 13 and an 11-year-old as well, daughters. And we were in Virginia. I was only with my mother down there, so I wanted to move back home where I felt a little bit more safe for myself and my children. And we ended up coming back to Connecticut, and I ended up going with my sister. We stayed there for a little while I tried to find work, childcare, and everything. During the time that we were homeless or staying with my sister, my kids' grades were horrible. F's, D's, they weren't completing their work. No matter how many times I would go to parent-teacher conferences, it just was not getting any better. I tried to stay on it, but I also was trying to work a lot, so it was kind of, it was a struggle, but we managed to make it work once we finally moved. And it's like they had a better space because of the fact that they have their own rooms, so they have more space and time to actually do their own thing without being disturbed by a whole bunch of other children in the household. I did end up finding a job as a CNA. I am a CNA. So I started working and trying to make enough money to start saving up to find a place, but nothing was affordable. I do have a friend of mine who is a realtor, and a couple of houses or apartments that he was showing me, I ended up going seeing, but they were a little too expensive and not in my price range. So he did give me information for Head Start on housing. I got my son enrolled into an early Head Start program. Then after that, they started the whole process of me applying for the Section 8 voucher. And then once I did that, I ended up getting my voucher December 1st. So that moved rather quickly, and I was extremely excited about that. There just was the challenge of finding a place that was in a nice area, and it wasn't where I didn't feel comfortable raising my children. So I finally found this place, and I was able to move in April, and it's much better now. My kids aren't getting bad grades anymore. They're more focused. They have basically both of them been on the honor roll this whole time. My son is happy. He has his own space as well. We're just happy now. Like, this is, it was necessary. I mean, we weren't homeless this time for too long, but I just wanted to get back to how we were before the whole domestic violence situation happened. And we did. So my son is enrolled with early Head Start program, and he has done a great job in there. He sings his ABCs all day. He loves counting his 1, 2, 3s. This him 24/7. Words of advice that I would give to other families that are going through the same thing that I went through is basically just don't give up. Keep fighting. If programs aren't really able to help you at that moment, kind of be patient, because things will happen and fall into place when they're supposed to.
My, Kira, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It's one thing to talk about insecure housing, to hear about numbers, but when you can see a person who has actually experienced it, makes it all the more real. And thank you for allowing yourself to be a realness to us all. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And now we are going to continue to receive the realness of this very unfortunate situation. So honored now to introduce Angie Adorno, who is an early childhood specialist at Advance. She's going to share with us about the impact of homelessness on child development. Passing it to you, Anne.
Thank you so much, Lorna, and thank you, Sarah, and everyone so far, and really big thank yous to Kira for letting us know kind of the inside piece of what it all really feels like. We can collect the data and we can evaluate children, but to really hear the voices of moms telling us what it's like every day. So I thank you for sharing that with us, and it really helps us set the stage going forward. So I'm going to take a moment and share my screen. Thank you for joining today. This very, very important topic. I think when we look at the sheer numbers who are here today, it's a stark reminder about the fact that I think we'll probably touch upon later in our webinar, which is that in order to do this work, in order to affect change in this daunting situation, we need people from every walk of early childhood and family work and home and housing work. So thank you for being here. So I'm just going to talk very, very briefly today a little bit about the background. I'll piggyback on some things that Sarah brought to light because we get this, right? The science is clear. We know that brains grow the fastest, right, between birth and 3 years old. And when babies don't get that, when they don't get the predictable, nurturing consistent routines embedded in their daily lives, there absolutely can be negative, long-lasting developmental, educational, health, and mental health consequences. So we also know that a child's health and development are critically dependent upon parental mental health and physical well-being during pregnancy, and their stress and their parents' stress levels going forward. So it doesn't stop once those babies are born, right? So we know homelessness significantly impacts the prenatal period, and then it carries on as we welcome this beautiful young infant into such daunting circumstances. So we also know that the younger and the longer a child experiences homelessness, the greater the cumulative toll of not only negative health outcomes, but it really can have lasting effects on the child, the family, and in the larger sense, the community, because we know the data is also clear. Young adults experiencing homelessness who do not graduate from high school, who aren't able to pass those educational barriers that Sarah touched upon, are 4 to 5 times as likely to become homeless themselves as adults. So we really want to think about starting early and getting this right. So just some fast demographics. Interestingly, the infancy is at the age at which a person is most likely to become homeless in the United States. Most people, if you're not in this field, would not recognize that fact, and it's a pretty surprising one for people to know. Approximately half of the children staying in HUD-funded shelters are under the age of 6, right? And according to the U.S. Department of Education homeless data in the years 21-22, these numbers will look slightly different than Sarah's. And I think that's also a highlight that we all need to get better at data collection. And this is a hard population to catch. So we do the best with what we can collect. So nationally, they recognized 1.21 million children pre-K age through grade 12, and around 365 children nationally under the age of 3. When we then look at Connecticut's numbers, there were around 4,000 children noted pre-K through 12, and around over 1,000 under the age of 3. What we know also is that this data is woefully underreported, particularly for our children under the ages of 3. If they're not enrolled in a Nurturing Wonderful program that we know that monitors all of that. So if they're not in early care, if they're not in a home visiting program or early Head Start, they are often missed and fall under the radar. So we are critically aware that there are probably many more children than we're able to represent in the numbers that we collect. So kind of just thinking about the face of family homelessness, a large number of women who are young and homeless between the ages of 18 and 25 are either pregnant or parenting. These are the children, these are the families enrolled in our programs. And we see how many are headed by someone under the age of 25 in shelter. And we know that this situation just particularly puts homeless teens at high risk for subsequent pregnancy. So another thing that I think was so eloquently shared by Sarah and also Kira's themes was letting us know that the experience of homelessness is a multifaceted problem because it simultaneously impacts both parent and child at the same time. So we have very compromised level. We're inside both. Everyone in the family is in survival mode. So we're seeing impacts to executive functioning, problem solving, language development, and other skill development. So obviously, the traumatic experience of being homeless, or as Sarah mentioned, even being at the risk of homelessness, is just characterized by all of those situations that we know do not provide positive outcomes for our young ones. It just invokes significantly high levels of unpredictability, a lack of consistency, and we know that these have lasting, profound impacts on both the health and development of young children. We also know that infants and toddlers are particularly vulnerable during that age period, right? Because of the developing structure of their brain in the first few years. So just looking at this kind of from a developmental perspective very quickly, we know that the experience of homelessness when someone is expecting, when they don't know where they're sleeping, when they don't know where they're going, when they have nowhere to put their things, or they're in a really stressful a chronically challenged situation, it is going to interfere on all of these levels with getting to the positive birth outcomes that we want to see. In particular, for me, that I notice is just thinking about how it even affects the attachment pattern. Because how do we begin to wonder, where will I put my baby? What will I do? Where will we sleep? Where will I put those new clothes and books, right? All of those early thinkings help us begin to form attachment to that baby even before they're born. So it's impacting both the role of the parent and the role of the infant. Infants have a big job, right? They have to connect and establish a sense of security and attachment with us. And parents have to support that through really consistent, responsive caregiving. But the situation of homelessness impedes this in all of these ways. We aren't in adequate physical environments. There's an inability to meet basic needs, et cetera. So it's impacting on every level. And then we have our toddlers, right? Our busy little toddlers. They have really big jobs too, don't they? They're working on some self-regulation, a sense of identity, giving them an opportunity to practice negotiating really big feelings all day, every day. Any of you have parented toddlers, you know this, right? It also creates really big jobs for parents. They have to provide a safe, predictable, secure environment with regular routines and scaffold them, right? But homelessness works against this also in every level, particularly for toddlers. They're often in poorly maintained and unsafe environments. There are restrictions on what we know to be the toddler's just natural inclination to want to explore and be big and get involved in everything. So there's lots of pressures on parents to manage those behavioral situations that are very normal and very developmentally appropriate for our toddlers. And our preschoolers are becoming our little social people, aren't they? They're learning to develop relationships with peers, with new adults. They're learning to separate a little bit from parents. They're learning to be able to recognize and describe the emotional states of others, themselves as well as others. And parents have an extremely hard job managing all of that, modeling pro-social behavior, supporting and scaffolding preschoolers as they navigate this big new world that they're in, right? This ever-growing world. So when you don't have the opportunity, again, to provide that structured, organized environment, it's very challenging. As children get older, what might be deemed unruly behavior by others, we know it's a response to the trauma, but others might see that as really unruly and unmanageable and be judgmental of that. It may mean that they get asked to move from even the very tenuous place that they're in. So we know that these situations are going to impose very, very deep impacts on all levels at different points, right? Infants, lots of crying, even with support, right? Eating and sleeping difficulty. Remember, those babies are born looking for who's looking for them, right? They want to attach with you. So if you don't see that happening, we're going to worry about that. We're going to wonder what is happening for this little one, right? And our toddlers are going to be already managing those big feelings, yet it's compounded by all of these other issues, including eating and sleeping and illness, as Sarah pointed out, very high levels. And then our preschoolers, we're going to see some of that really become demonstrated in their social emotional capacities with others. We might see anxiety, withdrawal, a lot of intense emotional reactions, behavioral reactions, hypervigilance, right? We know trauma can cause hypervigilance even in the absence of danger. So these children are carrying extremely high levels of social emotional concern, a lack of trust, a lack of sense of safety on every level in their little worlds that feel so big as they try to navigate them. Right. So the conditions of homelessness may really significantly impact a caregiver, a very well-meaning caregiver's attempts to want to provide that safe-based behavior, environment to promote healthy attachment and healthy growth, and to be able to engage in what we know, those serve and return, those back and forth exchanges that we all have with little ones when we're calm and when we're all feeling safe and we can say, I see you, look at what you just did. That's awesome, right? When you're worried every minute of every day, in sort of Maslow's description of how we think about our needs. If we are at the very bottom rung of that ladder, it is very difficult to have the emotional and physical availability as a parent to be able to offer these things, right? But there is good news. I want to say and end on the fact that there is good news. While babies and young children of this age are the most vulnerable, they are also the most resilient. And I think that that's why we can think about how we can use the power of our collective roles to raise up both children and families. So I thank you for what each of you do each and every day to support children and families. And I hope we can start to process in our panel a little bit about how we can really use the power of our respective roles. So thank you so much.
And many thanks to you. Thank you so very much for reminding us of these important years and how different events that happen to our children start as early as infancy and even prenatally. So thank you so very much for your expertise in sharing this with us. And we know that we're not saying goodbye to you because we're honored to have you on our panel discussion as well. And so with that, now we'd like to transition to our panel discussion, where we are honored to have several individuals to help make up our panelists, panel discussion that is, to give us different voices, different perspectives. We are looking forward to hearing voices from someone who oversees a homeless shelter, also from a home visiting provider and supervisor, also from someone who is a McKinney-Vento liaison and a early childhood specialist, and also the voice of someone who has experienced homelessness as a child. So without further ado, let me first begin by introducing Deirdre Dakari, who is the Executive Director of FISH, which is Friends in Service to Humanity. Deirdre, may you please say hello so the camera can feature you.
Hello, everyone. I'm really pleased to be amongst you, all of our fellow colleagues and providers.
Thank you so much, Deirdre. Next, we are honored to have Lisa Candles, who is a clinical supervisor at EdAdvance for parents as teachers. Lisa, may you please say hello?
Hi.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you. And next to her, we have Janet Trujillo, who is a home visiting provider, also with parents as teachers. May you please say hello, Janet?
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Janet Trujillo.
Thank you. And I so respect that you pronounced your name accurately because others need to do the same. So thank you so much, Janet. Thank you. Next, we have someone who we were honored to have as our keynote speaker, but we're even more honored now to have her with us to give her voice as Reflections experiencing homelessness as a child, Sarah Fox. Sarah, may you please say hello?
Hi, everyone. Hi again. So glad to be here.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And we also are honored to have, representing the McKinney-Vento liaisons, we have Michelle Anderson, who is Director of Early Childhood and Family Programs at EdAdvance. Michelle, may you please say hello?
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Michelle. And last but not least, we have Angie Ardarno, who we're so fortunate to hear from before, who is once again an early childhood specialist at EdAdvance. And may you say hello once again?
Hi, everybody. Great to be back with you and among this panel.
Thank you. So glad to have you with us. Thank you all for being with us. And let us begin with the first question. How does community support help mitigate the effects of homelessness on young children and families? And more specifically, looking to you, Lisa and Janet, what do you do within your home visiting program to mitigate homelessness?
Okay, thank you for the question. We do really a combination of prevention through resource connections. First, establishing relationships with the families. So most of the families that we work with are poor. And as we heard from Sarah, poverty is really what puts these families most at risk for being homeless. And so between a combination of resource connections and family support and education, those are the ways that we can help to mitigate homelessness. I like to call the family support and education part glue, because what we do in our program is really work very hard to make sure that families have the resources that they need, that they access the services that they need, even if that includes that we need to help transport them in our van or assure that transportation is provided through the services that can be provided for free by the state of Connecticut. But it's also scaffolding people during really challenging times, that helping the parents understand the importance of connecting with all the possible resources that they can, not just getting angry and upset about the situations that they're in. And then ultimately really moving forward with either their education or their employment so that they can get out of the situations that they're in, as well as connecting them, the people that qualify and that can, with any kind of supportive housing or vouchers for housing as needed. Janet, did I miss anything?
No, hello again, Janet Trujillo. So all of those things are a lot of what we touch on, but we also touch on what the root of the cause is. By knowing our families and really diving deep into understanding their dynamics, who they are, where they came from, cultural backgrounds, mental health, addiction, broken homes. Is it just a case of joblessness or a case of needing advocacy? So we really just 100% are available in these hard times and helping them understand that when they do have mental health and they are sort of avoiding that letter, oh, it'll be fine, they're not going to come in here, they're not going to lock the door on me, but yes, they are. They really will, and you will be homeless. So helping them understand and sitting with them in the dark, as we call it, until the light comes on, and really just, let's get your mental health under control. Let's get this situation into, let's connect you, whatever that may be, and holding their hand during that process. Not like, here's the phone number, so I'll see you next week. It's calling when they're sitting next to us, advocating for them, helping them if they're a Spanish speaking family and don't understand, really just, making sure that they understand in their own language what this all means and what their next steps are. We find funding anywhere we can, churches, Deirdre, a lot of people on this call, we've worked together, and just what can we all do as a community to help these families? This is what we have, who needs what, and we really, I love that I've been able to work with all of the people here and really have great outcomes for families. So it's really about fostering your community. And so you can bring that backwards to those who need you, or forward, however we're looking at it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Janet. Thank you. And with the same theme for the question, but specifically to you, Deirdre, what do you do within your shelter to mitigate homelessness?
At the FISH, it's Friends in Service to Humanity of Northwestern Connecticut shelter. We have 35 beds, and we're serving seniors through infants. And we are fortunate that besides, well, I wish it weren't, but it's congregate housing with dormitories. But we also have the house next door, which allows for 2 families, and each gets their own apartment as they await, their affordable permanent housing opportunities, supportive housing. So we can take larger families there than most places can. And then we have a room also in the shelter building that allows for families. And I'll share that last year, Michelle put out a call. I have 40 families that are homeless. So we made room in the women's shelter for a mom and single daughters to join in that group. I don't like that. I don't like the trauma of kids having to live with adult women, but we brought them in and made them a part of our life. So I will share that the first week on the job, after a 29-year career in professional Girl Scouting, Ann Giordano at the time was our McKinney-Vento specialist. And with the superintendent of schools, they visited our shelter, and with me specifically, to share with me all about McKinney-Vento and what we can do for our children. And that was the best foundation I could have, and it's almost 12 years later. So thanks, Anne, for that. And now we work very closely with Michelle and also with Lisa and Janet. So at so at the shelter, the number one thing when you come in is that we want families to feel safe, and we want to give them encouragement and hope. And I will tell you that there are often, women, usually it's a single family home, that have come in and they've never imagined that they're going to be homeless. And so they are scared to death. And they will tell their children, just stay in our room or just stay on our bed, and we'll bring our meals in and we won't mix. Well, within 2 weeks, everyone is so friendly. It's like these kids have aunts, uncles, and grandparents, always being cheerful. And our shelter is very special and very family oriented. And that's a lot due to also, I have a very caring and super staff making that possible. So shelter life, I always say, I just hope it's a blip on their radar as they await their housing placement. Now, at Fish, we're fortunate to have wraparound case management. And Adam, our case manager, provides a myriad of resources, advocacy, and also services from our fellow partners in the region, providing and connecting people to opportunities. So for parents, they may be needing education. We work with our local college as well, connecting you to vocational training classes. Some people need to finish their GED. We make that possible through Ed Advance as well. Job searching, documentation support so that they can get their apartment, making sure they're connected to SNAP and Social Security if that's the need. And then, of course, medical and mental health. We actually have a physician's office as a part of our program. And once a week, community health and wellness is with us, providing needs and connecting people, fast tracking them to specialists if needed. And we have serving so many ages of people that's very necessary, and especially those with mental health issues. So our major goal, I feel, is to provide for our children childhood memories and joy. So we celebrate everything we possibly can at Fish. We do our holidays. I have many, many friends that bake homemade cookies for all of Christmas week. And we have, Santa comes, that kind of thing. We do birthdays. And then let's say a child living with us wants to go to a birthday party. We help provide the gift so that when they go to that birthday party, they feel like all the other kids. So they do that. We go to kindergarten graduations. I've been to high school graduations. I've been to a community college graduation. We have thrown baby showers, the most recent just about 6 months ago here. We have had dads caring for their children in the apartment next door, and they have a teenage daughter. How do they dress for their first school dance? Well, all of us staff members help make that happen, so that we have the proper outfit. And then even play dates. When kids move out of the shelter, we welcome them back to come and play with the kids that have left. And, we're such a friendly, we have a play corner. The kids come. It's really wonderful when that happens. Last year, we had a group in for Easter egg coloring as well. So I want to share that for us, Ed Advance is so key to our success, because not only the McKinney-Vento keeping children in the same school system, unless I often say that if you're going to be moving to Torrington, let's get you in the school system and start making new friends. There's the Birth to 3 program, the Head Start, summer camps. Michelle always makes sure I have money every summer to send our kids to camps or to summer programs. They give us funding for clothing and back to school supplies. The pandemic was so challenging for any shelter, and we actually did not have COVID in our shelter for 2.5 years, which was remarkable, following our team Stay Healthy. But Michelle made sure that we, in the house next door, that we had all the proper Wi-Fi connections so that we could connect our children to these school systems programs. And, you know, we didn't miss a beat thanks to Ed Advance. And if we have any shelter need, we can call in advance, and they help us, as I say, make magic help happen. I do want to mention that we were February of last year with Sarah and some of you. I was at the legislature and had the opportunity to speak in a press conference. And from that, this man ran up and he said, "Oh, I'm a producer at CPTV. They've done a really superb, remarkable, I think it will be award-winning documentary called Fighting for Home, How Housing Policy Keeps Connecticut Segregated." And it not only followed seniors, but after I spoke, I represent a rural shelter. I'm not an urban setting. And he said, "Gosh, we never even thought of that for this documentary." So it ended up that one of our moms and her daughter were the key focus. We had about 3 minutes of the 1 hour show. And they came and visited and followed our little Zayla around to school, to walks, to having her play friends come over and Easter egg coloring, that kind of stuff. But it really hits the target of why we are facing the planning and zoning, which Torrington definitely faced last year for our cold weather shelter and continues to, on, you know, giving the dignity, giving the humane respect to people facing homelessness and keeping them safe. This 1 hour documentary really touches on that. So I recommend going to their CPTV website and looking at that show for an hour.
Deirdre, my, thank you so much for such rich information you shared in that response, and it certainly connected well to what was shared previously. And thank you for reminding us that this is something that impacts all zip codes. Thank you. And again, with the same theme of the question, reaching out specifically to you, Michelle and Anne, how do you help inform the public about homelessness and or the risks of homelessness?
I think a lot was said about the services and the supports, but Anne and I, and Deirdre mentioned, Anne served as McKinney-Vento liaison for Torrington area before I did. And we've kind of taken the approach where we make childhood homelessness everyone's business, and I think some in the community see us coming and they know exactly what we're going to say to them. But Anne and I really have elevated the message that, you know, homelessness doesn't stop just in the schools, because the McKinney-Vento is a school law, so you have to be enrolled in public school. Traditionally, that's K through 12. We do have pre-K through 12. So we have before my time, Anne did the same thing. We sat at CAN meetings. Before that, it was housing provider meetings. We work with our 211 CAN navigators in the community. I have them on speed dial. We're always over at Fish figuring out what we're going to do with families. We work very closely with the case management staff at all of our shelters, including the one in Winstead. I think what Sarah said during her keynote, it really is a cross-sector approach. And Anne and I take that very seriously, because we wouldn't be able to do this work in isolation. We have a very small McKinney-Vento subgrant that allows for the camperships Deirdre talked about, school supplies, but that's it. So really our community has looked at this as a public health, public issue, where we really do partner with many in the community to address this. And with that said too, we are so fortunate that we have an Office of Early Childhood that takes this issue just as serious and allows for these types of webinars, and also allows us to be a partner in the statewide trainings on homelessness. And Anne is really our expert in that, where she goes and trains populations of early childhood providers such as Head Start staff. We are part of the Head Start on Housing and other early childhood programs to really understand this, because McKinney-Vento, again, is more school, but we know those kids in school have siblings. So within our Torrington community, we ask that question right away. When I hear a sixth grader is homeless in the middle school, I work with the social worker to quickly identify if there's any other children at home. Then we bring in all the other resources, home visitation, birth to 3. So it really is a cross-sector approach. I think we do it well because we have taken this issue very seriously in our community, and we have worked together, and we've seen wonderful success stories with this. Anne, I don't know if you want to add anything to this.
Love that, Michelle. That was really comprehensive. I think one of the other big facets that we like to think about all the time is awareness. Because as I said in one of my first slides, how many people would have no idea how many young children and families are impacted by this. So we, as Michelle said, we kind of take our training on the road, and we're really we'll pretty much go anywhere. We want to get to not just superintendents and special ed directors. We want to get to teachers and school line cafeteria staff and school secretaries, school administrative staff at that front door who meets the family and who didn't know that, yes, this is a McKinney-Vento family. Yes, they can enroll tomorrow. And then that family faces something, again, that feels so daunting and so victimizing because they're yet turned away. And it's not that people are ill-meaning, this is an awareness issue. So we think about it certainly in the social service arenas where we do a lot of that, but we also look at unique other little pockets. Like we've met with realtors, trying to help them understand how they could translate this in a more positive way, a more informative way to potential landlords so that they would understand, because it's such a complex issue. I recently spoke at Rotary. That yet again was a very different, thank you to Deirdre, that again was a very different niche that I'm normally used to speaking to. It was a lot of people from the business sector. Again, the eyes were aghast. Really? Tell me more about this. How can we help these families? So, I think there's a whole lot around how we can really expand awareness and understanding of this issue. So that's part of it for sure.
And we're so thankful to all that you, Michelle, and everyone here is helping to spread the awareness of it, because yes, we must talk and must be more aware of what is going on. And with that, Sarah, if I may ask you if you could describe supports that were there to support you as a child. And I want to say once again, so honored that you are here and speaking with both voices. We heard you before, and the fact that you're part of this panel and very important discussion as well. May you please share your thoughts?
I'm happy to. I will say it was a much different time. I'm much, much older than I was then. Obviously, I a few decades. But we were in a domestic violence situation, and my mom left, and we experienced homelessness, and we slept out on a beach. We begged for money in a park. My twin sister and my big sister and my mom. And we faced harsh shelter rules. So we had to leave the shelter at 8 a.m. And we spent the whole day outside. So it's when I look back, there weren't the supports that we have today, which is, I think, one of the reasons why when we think about flexible funding or we think about ways that we can help families, I think about it a little bit differently, because so oftentimes, if my mom were provided with flexible funding, if there was someone to say, hey, this is the way that we can help, um, it would have provided us with the stability that we didn't have. It's so very difficult to, when we think about moms, and even my mom, in the situation she was in with babies, to navigate the harsh reality that so many people have walked through. But seeing my mom walk through this, and being that child, it was devastating. And when we talk about the impact on the kid and on learning. There's a UPenn study that once a child enters into homelessness, their their mental health depreciates 50%. And I can say that, the housing instability and the poverty that we live through made it just very difficult to show up in school, to be present, to think, because I was surviving. And that survival really went on until I was in college. So, and then I didn't know I was smart, so I didn't even know I was going to go to college. So, for me, like when you know, my start was really when one teacher told me I was smart, and that was in community college. But I think that to that point, it's and when I think about our frontline staff and early care providers, it's how you show up and how you really connect with people in that moment, and the understanding that a mom who's late, um a family that, sorry, now I'm getting emotional, or a family who just doesn't seem like they have it together, or kids that have kids who have clothing that's not washed, like that's a reality, and it's not comfortable for the family. And oftentimes our families are jumping through so many hoops to make it happen, and that's what we survived. And it gives me a different lens as CEO, for what it means and the impacts, because it's oftentimes it's not that much that we have to do to connect people. It's not that much that we have to do. It's really about systems, and making sure people are being successful in our programs and how we show up. Because everybody deserves to thrive, and everybody needs that one person like I did to say, hey, like, you're okay. You're smart, you're worth it, and I'm going to invest in you. Um, because that changes lives, and we can do that with support. We can also do it with just the services when you show up in a household. And so yeah, so I guess that's my long answer, which is just like, it's very, very difficult to experience housing insecurity. And it does, as I said earlier, like it goes on with you, like you never leave that behind. I will never lose that. And today I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And I also know that concurrently, just last winter we had over 40 families that were outside throughout the winter. And for those moms, I mean, I see it as myself as a child, but I also think about those moms and how I'm a mom today, and we've used every early care service possible, and I have all of these things to provide my child, and yet it's so hard. And so, how do we expect moms to be able to be their best selves when they're struggling with housing insecurity? And so, as a state, we must do better. This isn't a question about for me, it's a question about how we show up for families and how we make sure no child, as the first thing we should do as a state is we should make sure that no child experiences unsheltered homelessness. There's not that many, and we can do that today, with will. And no child falls into homelessness. That's an easy thing too, because we just need to do this better so that no one has to experience what I experienced. Like, where would I be if I didn't have that to contend with?
Wow, Sarah, I'm holding back tears as well. And I think that the tears that fall not only remind us of the reality of this, but it also shows the compassion, the dedication you have to the work that you do. And that just allows us to have even more respect for you, because you've been there. So you can say, I know, with those you are working to support. Thank you for being such a blessing to so many. And with that, question for all of our teammates here. Recognizing our panel represents voices from a homeless shelter, a home visiting providing program, McKinney-Vento liaison, a childhood developmental specialist, and someone who has experienced homelessness herself. Please describe how you all are effective partners together. And you've done that in various ways in different responses you've given. But again, wanting for each of you to share how you are effective partners together. And I'm going to add a little something to it. And again, I ahead of time said for you all to please be patient and flexible if we have an in the moment question. Not only how are you effective working together, but what keeps you in this work? What keeps you in doing this work? And maybe first begin with Lisa and Janet.
You know, the thing that struck me in listening to the responses was really the importance of humanity, of recognizing, you know, I'm glad that FISH is Friends in Service to Humanity, and everybody in their responses spoke about the human needs of parents and children. And I think that's the most important thing that I would say as part of what we all do and how we work together, that we know that people have basic needs, but the real most basic need is to be treated with respect and compassion and kindness, especially when you're going through a difficult time. And that really makes such a difference. When parents are treated that way, it has such a positive impact on their treatment of their own children. That's what I would say first. And so as far as collaborating, we're kind of out here, you know, in the northwest corner. And so we have to work together because we're all we have. But I think that the approach of being humble in what you have, but bringing all that you have to the table works. That worked for me when I was in Hartford for 26 years, and recognizing your own limitations and then seeking out others who might be able to fill in the gaps.
So, do you want me to just go, or since we're like a pair now? Um, Hello, everyone again. Effective partners, I think everyone on here knows, and actually Sarah, I think we've been on RECA together and a few other things for our parent advocacy positions. So immediately, if I feel like I'm in over my head, or I feel like someone might need support from some, I'm sending out this big email. I have a mom, you know, I have a family, help in any way. And the community comes back with as much knowledge, you know, support, resources. I have this, but I don't have that, you know, and I just love that I can send that email and immediately get a response from, you know, everyone here and even in Hartford and so forth. So thank you everyone for collaborating. And I love that I can collaborate. And what keeps me here is my passion. So I, like Sarah, grew up in a really rough time. You know, we were very poor. We did experience addiction, homelessness, and all that stuff. So as a child, I grew up in that. So I know that every day showing up for these moms, that I can make a difference, and I've seen it happen. So showing up as that 4-year-old and just sitting with them, and that's what keeps me going, because you can't give up on them, because it's like giving up on yourself.
You know, I think the other part for me is that I worked for many years with teen and young moms and their kids, and I think, and I don't even know where it came from for me, but believing in people before they believe in themselves is a big part of the work, especially in the work with parents.
Mhm.
And I would hope that we would adjust the systems that we need to adjust, especially with the Department of Children and Families and their handling of families in poverty and families dealing with homelessness. Because that would really, the reason I come to work every day is to help change those systems and improve the lives of families.
My, I, yes, just I'm not going to apologize for getting tearful, because I think the tears that some may be experiencing is just a reminder of how real this is, and just will keep us grounded in the work that we do. And thank you, just thank you so much. And with that, we want to continue to hear thoughts and responses. Michelle, what are your thoughts, please?
Yes, just being in the northwest corner, like Lisa mentioned, we've all have it in our blood to really work together because we are under-resourced in this area. And I think our outcome, though, is the same. We want positive outcomes for children and families, and we go through great lengths to make sure that happens. And I really see with my time working in the school system and working with all of our partners that everyone had that mission in mind. I mean, there's no accident that Torrington has somebody like myself to pay extra attention to this law because they're a busy school district, but if they have a set of eyes that are always paying attention, right there shows partnership with the community. They know they've got to have a little extra eyes on this issue. So partnering with the school system, it's an amazing partnership. Partnering with all of our resources, Head Start, Birth to 3, home visitation, Fish, the YMCA in Winstead is another shelter, our domestic violence shelter. We just all have had to learn how to really work well together. And we just don't let up, and we all show up all the time for this work. And when I'm working with families, I never use the word homelessness, really. I just educate them on the law. And sometimes the very part of the law that I just explained, that you can stay right in your own community and you could stay in your school where you became homeless or became housing insecure, that right there has changed their day and their sometimes life, because they know, wow, I could stay here and you're going to help me figure out how to do that. So we think it's easy because we all work so well together. And then when I can offer another resource like home visitation or Head Start or Birth to 3, or let's see if we can get you into this wonderful place called Fish, that all makes the difference because we all experience, we know, we feel what these places are like, and we can relay that to families.
Thank you, Michelle. And you made reference to Fish, so that's a great segue to pass it to Deirdre to share your thoughts, please.
In many ways, because it's all about our collaboration and partnering with others to make life a success for those we serve. I think that the pandemic in so many ways improved our skills in relating to each other when we just weren't meeting in person, that we were Zooming together. We got to know each other very well, and multiple meetings. I mean, in those days, some days we were meeting every day. So now we know each other well enough that it's just a matter of picking up a phone, of, throwing ideas out to those that we work with. But, we all have that common goal of getting folks into, supportive housing, and how can we do it best? And with my wonderful case manager, Adam, I mean, the housing solution meetings, the meetings he has at the Gathering Place, our drop-in center for the homeless, working with all that I'm looking at on this panel, the Connecticut Coalition and Homelessness. I mean, I don't know that we ever would have had the relationship we have today if it weren't for all our Zoom meetings, and now we continue and we head to the legislature, and we just have become stronger through that, with the goal of helping. How I ended up here at Fish, and why I love it so. I was approached to become the executive director, and I actually had to think about it for 6 months. And then I said, I'll throw my hat in the ring, and I ended up becoming the executive. And so I started in March 18th of 2013. That was the same week that the Pope was elected. So here I am taking on, we have not only a shelter, but we have a food pantry serving just under 2,000 people. And so the Pope got on that balcony, and he represented all people. It wasn't just about Catholics. We have to worry about the most vulnerable. We need to think about the homeless, the hungry, those that suffer with, health issues. And I thought, there he is, spreading the message that I've got to work on. And my senior year at college at Wheaton, I was an urban studies major. My paper was on the homeless of Boston and the Pine Street Inn. So it was like a life circle that came, and I think God just was hitting me on the head. This is your direction. And I have to say, this is where I need to be. I am well over retirement age, I have to say, and I have no plans of retiring. I'm going to stick around because I love what I do in our service to others. And I love working with our families most of all, truly.
And we are so appreciative of all that you do, all that you do. And you made reference to the Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness. So we'll segue to Sarah, please, to share your thoughts from whatever perspective you care to.
I mean, I think I'm just so glad to be amongst all of you and to know, sometimes in this world, it feels as though people don't care. It's clear that there's a special sauce up in northwestern Connecticut, but it's also very clear to me that you know, the Office of Early Childhood and the people doing the work, this really hard work with little children who need a strong start, um, show up, and that you're thinking in the right direction, and thinking in ways that eclipse other professionals across the state. And so I think we are well suited to do this work and to really end family homelessness and overall homelessness once and for all in the state. For me, what drives me is just knowing that we can do better as a state. Um, and so leaving here, you've reinvigorated my passion to make sure that no child experiences unsheltered homelessness. I would invite you all to join CCH on that journey. I think it's something we can do and we can get moving on. And then, and as we move into winter, I just want to bring forward CCH has a Be Homeful for the Holidays campaign that we do with the Connecticut Realtors. And it's all about raising those flexible dollars. And then we also provide a Paddington Bear to every child in shelter, along with the $25 donation goes towards preventing families from becoming homeless. So I'll share those materials. Oh, thank you, Jen. Thank you so much. Because every donation matters, and flexible funds are at an all-time low across the state, and they're so critical to our family success. And every family shelter across the state really utilizes those resources, and it's a way to have impact today.
Thank you, Sarah, for recognizing that all hands are on deck in support of this effort. Thank you. Anne, may you please share your thoughts?
Thank you so much. I've learned so much from everybody. I learn every day. I think in terms of some concrete things around like how does our community get this done? I think we've recognized that the Northwest corner, like the other far corners, they're rural, they're disconnected, there's no transportation, there are lots of barriers. But we've kind of created sort of a system called the no wrong door approach, where we have like some champions in the community that anyone else in the community knows that they can call them and say, I have a child and I have a family and these are the situations. And we sort of appointed a triage person, and she kind of knows all the ins and outs of the different home visiting programs. I can't say enough about our home visiting programs. We started out this conversation around thinking about the extreme levels of unpredictability and uncertainty that the homeless situation invokes when you are managing it every day. And I think our home visiting programs many times can be that very consistent, predictable, nurturing, warm hand that families need every week, because no matter what's going on, they are coming back. And for some of our families, they are the first predictable, consistent, nurturing support that maybe they've ever had or that they've had in many years. Our systems are really difficult to manage. And so I think it's just so very important. And so we have that approach. We really work well together. We know we've spent years really learning about the nuances of each other's programs. So we know who to best connect people with. But I think the other side of this is, which we've touched upon, some of you as well, is that human side, which is that I was doing a training on homelessness the other day at a Head Start program, and somebody said that their leader says, and I loved this, he says, progress happens as fast as trust grows. And it reminded me of what has to happen in this work. So we need to come to this work without judgment, not just about absolutely about the families that we're serving, but I think also about each other. We cannot do this work alone. And so the more we can build sort of a reflective culture, think about taking on a reflective stance in how we approach our work. There's a tremendous infant mental health guru who's passed on, Dr. Jerry Paul, and what she has always said was, how we are is as important as what we do. And I think sometimes we have to recognize that there are barriers in this work, and families face barriers every day. But what families will remember is how they felt. How we can come from a place of value. We can come from a place of saying something as simple as, because I can't fix all of the big things many times. They're like, it's this big, right? But I can say to a family, I thought about you over the weekend. I know how hard last week appeared, so tough. How are you today? And it's kind of that concept of holding someone else in mind. And what is that message to that person, whether it's a family we're serving or it's our colleague, right? We all have hard times. To say, I thought about you. That's a message that says, you matter, right? This goes back to the same messages our infants learn in those early few months. You matter. You are of value. Your situation is important to me. And if we can leave people with that, I think, just helping families understand that we hold them in mind and that they can take that going forward, whatever happens, that at least they felt valued. I had a family say, and this is not about me, don't misunderstand me, because there were many hands in helping this family who experienced living in a tent with 3 children for the entire summer up here in the Northwest. And we got together in the way that we do and triaged about this and triaged about that. And she looked at me and she said, no one's ever treated me this way. And I thought, wow, well, you deserve to be treated in this way. You're in a situation. We can all come together and we can remember that regardless of what the family is showing us at that moment, they are likely doing the very best they can in that minute. And so what can we do? And it might mean, what can we do today, right? What might just be, what can we do today? So become more reflective, be respectful to one another, and most certainly hold our families in high regard going forward. So.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And with what you were sharing in terms of treating with respect, and Janet, Lisa, you both spoke of that as well, and in how we treat someone. And I'm really struck by all that has been shared, and just the influence that everyone plays in inspiring someone. Certainly, Sarah, when you said that my start was when a teacher told me I was smart. Wow, imagine that. And with that, have our last question. When you think back to when you were a young child, what words of advice would the younger version of yourself tell adults about what having a place to call home meant to you? So, want for you to think back to a younger version of yourself, whatever age you choose to decide, but let's say younger than 7. What words of advice would this younger version of yourself tell adults about what having a place called home meant to you? And let us begin with Deirdre, please.
I quickly wrote some words down, I think, to express. And I think I was really blessed with a wonderful, loving home. So I would hope love, being surrounded by caring people, nurturing people that encouraged me, a feeling of hope that I would always achieve whatever I thought about, because my parents made me feel safe about that. And then I think most of all, my sisters and family were my best friends. And, I could wish that for people in their family life.
Thank you, Deirdre. Lisa.
I'm the fourth of 6 kids, so I like a happy crowd. And I think, but having a place to be comfortable and to be able to run around outdoors freely is really critical to my idea of home.
Mhm.
Janet. Thank you, Lisa.
So 7 is when I finally got a home and a stable home. So prior to that, I would have said what that home was. It was birthday parties at the table. It didn't have to be anything extravagant, just a cake and pizza. Somewhere where, I had my own space that I could sleep and have my, stuffy or what have you. And I just remember those things being really important in that time when I transitioned to this life before to this life now. Having my own bed, having a clean bed, a clean home. That was very important to me.
And food.
And food, yes, food. Yeah, lots of it, because my grandmother made sure she made up for all the lost years.
Thank you,
Yes.
Janet. Thank you, Lisa. Anne, may you please share?
Thank you for those stories. Thinking about the age that you asked us to think about, which is around 7 or 8. I did not grow up in homelessness, with the exception of a period when we did have a house fire, and so we actually did experience homelessness for a period. But I lived in a pretty vulnerable situation in a very large urban area, and I remember playing with a little friend in 3rd grade. I forget now, how old are you in 3rd grade? And I went and played at her house, and she lived in a very, what I would, from my perception at that time, called a normal house. It was extended family, grandparents lived upstairs, or they lived upstairs, or whatever it was. Very connected family, 2-family house that they owned, very, very different than my experience. And I played at her house and I had the most wonderful time. And I went home and I couldn't wait to see her the next day. And I said, "So when will you come to my house?" And she said, I'll ask my mom. And she came back the next day and she said, I said, "When are you coming?" And she said, "Oh, I can't come to your house." And I said, "Oh, why not?" And she said, "My mom said I can't come because of where you live." And I understood distinctly and vividly in that moment of a 3rd grader's mind what that meant. And what I learned from that was, don't ever judge anyone, because we don't know their story, we don't know their history, we don't know their potential. And so we need to be listeners, and we need to always wonder, what might I be missing from this story? What else would help me? What other narrative would help me understand who this person is and what this person is bringing? So that would be mine. Withhold judgment.
Powerfully said, Anne. Thank you so much. Michelle, may you please share your thoughts?
I'll just wrap it up with one word and I'll say safety, or 2 words, and security, because I always knew I had a place to call home. And it's kind of full circle of this webinar. Many of our families do not have that place to go back to. We do see that a lot. That support system is not there, but that's what I'm grateful for, that was there for me. So I couldn't imagine it not being there.
Thank you, Michelle. And Sarah, may you please share your thoughts?
I'll just say I've shared a lot. So stability, hope, and love and constancy.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for reminding us that when it comes to having a home, it's much more than brick and mortar. It's about what is fed within the home, whether it's actual nutrition, it's a sense of love, a sense of safety. And that is something that all of our children have the right to have. And thank you so much to our panelists, Deirdre, Lisa, Janet, Michelle, Anne, and Sarah, for reminding us of all of that. Thank you to all of our webinar participants. Thank you so much, Diana, for giving us instructions on how to access interpretation. Thank you, Sasha and Aranda, for providing interpretive services to us. Thank you so much to Acting Commissioner Elena Trueworthy for your warm, welcoming remarks. Thank you so very much, of course, to Sarah Fox for your keynote message, speaking truth to power, but also reminding us of the influence of where one came from does not define who they will become. Thank you so very much, Sarah. Thank you so much, Karen Pascal, for introducing Kara's story, but thank you for being a key important partner in all of this work. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Kira, for sharing your story and putting a personalized experience to the reality of what is happening. Thank you so much, Angie Ardano, for reminding us of the impact of insecure housing on childhood development. And again, to our panelists, Deirdre, Lisa, Janet, Michelle, Ann, and Sarah. And I, of course, want to thank our teammates behind the scenes. Thank you so much, Jen Ide, for managing all things Zoom. Thank you to Graphics by Jules, Team O'Donnell, UConn School of Social Work Innovations Institute for collectively helping with our video vignette editing, webinar support, and recording and webinar surveys. And a link for the survey will be provided to you in the link here. And also you'll receive an email because we would like to hear feedback on how we can continue with this effort moving forward. But most importantly, want to thank all of you who are watching this either live or watching a recording. Thank you for being present. Thank you for receiving what is being talked about. And thank you for remembering the importance of this subject matter. It's not a one and done topic. The importance of this must continue on once this webinar ends. Thank you so much for being an important messenger in this regard. And with that, as we come to a close, thank you so much again for your support, your collective willingness to support our children, and we shall see you again. Take care all.